What's up, average dad fans? Welcome back to another video, and it's Sunday, it's 8 PM, it's time for a review. However, for the first time since doing my reviews at 8 PM on Sundays, this is a budget phone. The new Poco M7 Pro 5G has been handed to me by Poco for review, but unlike some other washed up YouTubers, I will not be telling you this is a flagship killer. I will not be saying this competes with the S25 Ultras and Xiaomi 15 Ultras of the world. I will, as always, be keeping it 100% real. So, without further ado, let's go. Now, typically in reviews, you would keep the price until the end for retention and keeping people hanging on, but I'm going to start with the price. The Poco M7 Pro 5G comes in at £199. Yes, I felt it was important to tell you the price point before I discuss specifications. So for comparison, this phone is 1/3 the price of the new iPhone 16e, and it's 1/6 the price of the S25 Ultra and the Xiaomi 15 Ultra and the iPhone 16 Pro Max. But as mentioned, this isn't a comparison between any of those phones. This video is my experience using a less than £200 smartphone in 2025, and Poco have nailed it. So first up, I just want to touch on the design. The design of this phone is, well, I think pretty damn impressive. It comes in three colours: silver, green that I have here, and a purple hue. All phones come with Gorilla Glass Victus 5 on the front, not the latest and greatest, and they're plastic backs. But before you start going mad in the comments, the Google Pixel 9a is also a plastic back. On your mid-range to budget phones, it just makes sense. And if you pay attention to Jerry Rig, he's a big fan of plastic backs. One thing I can say is this doesn't feel plasticky. This very much feels like a glass back. And overall, design-wise, nothing offensive. Some nice colours and a nice pattern on there. I enjoy it. In terms of the weight of the phone, it's 190 grams, meaning it feels just sturdy enough not to feel too cheap. And that's important. There are phones out there that weigh less with plastic backs that just feel light and, yeah, feel like you would probably break them, and you damn sure don't want to take it anywhere near water or the beach. However, durability-wise, the M7 Pro does have an IP64 water and dust resistance, so if you were by a pool and happen to get splashed, or if you were on the beach, you can be safe in the knowledge that your phone will be just fine with no issues. And I have to say, in real life, using it in Qatar, which is desert, and by the pool every single day, I've had no issues, no scratches, no water damage, no dust getting in anywhere. I've had no issues using this in the harshest climates around. It was 42 degrees the day I left Qatar, which is just too damn hot. And before we talk about the internals and camera, I do just want to touch on this quite fantastic display. Now, caveat, a quite fantastic display for the price point, not a fantastic display if you're used to using an S25 Ultra or an Honor Magic 7 RSR. But this 6.67 inch AMOLED 120Hz display with a 2100 nits of peak brightness has been absolutely perfect for viewing content because it has just a small hole punch camera that we'll talk about soon. Content is almost uninterrupted, and bezels, which is always a bone of contention when it comes to budget phones. As you can see here, bezels wise, we're pretty damn good. Symmetrical, no big chin. So overall design and feel and look of the phone and display has been, yeah, Uncompromising is what I would say to this point. However, I did say, and I will always keep it real, if you don't have Bluetooth headphones, the speakers on here, while stereo, aren't great. In fact, they're really not that good, if I'm being honest, but how many of you out there actually use the physical speakers on a phone rather than just Bluetooth headphones? So here's a listen to how the speakers sound. Passable, but definitely not good. So now that we've covered the external, the hardware of the device, I do just want to cover some of the internal hardware, including the chipset and other bits and bobs you can expect from this device. First up inside is the MediaTek Dimensity 7025 Ultra chipset. What does that mean? As a certain YouTuber would say, what does that mean in English? Mid-tier specs. Yeah, you are not going to get 60 frames per second Genshin Impact gaming from this device. But I played some Asphalt 9 and it was absolutely fine. I also used it for scrolling the internet and YouTube and all that stuff, and I didn't see any performance issues. The one area that I would say it lacks is in the camera department, and we'll talk about that soon. Now, on top of the MediaTek chipset, you do have some other internal features, such as UFS storage. However, it is capped at UFS 2.2, which, yeah, I've not used on a phone for a long time, but for me, this will never be the phone I would ever use to transfer data. However, if you are, it's UFS 2.2, and in terms of memory, it's DDR4X RAM, not the latest and most commonly used DDR5X. Now, in real life, for the people that are going to be buying this £200, less than £200 phone, I don't really think the target demographic is worried about data transfer speeds and memory, but that's the specs inside. Now, for those that don't know, Poco is actually a smaller sister sub-brand of Xiaomi, meaning this phone runs HyperOS, and I've had my to's and fro's with HyperOS, but ultimately it's a nice Android skin on top of an almost stock Android feel. As you can see here from the icons, the options, the pop-ups, everything is basically stock Android with some cool Android features, including Google Gemini baked in. And we're almost at cameras, which I know is most people's top priority on a smartphone. However, I just want to touch on battery here. The battery is impressive. It's 5100 milliamp hours. It does have a 45 watt charger in the box, and that reminds me, I'll flash up the unboxing here, which also comes with a case and a cable and a SIM ejection tool and all the stuff you need to get started. And I want you to just keep that in mind. If I were to compare this phone to the iPhone 16e, which is £600, 3 times the price, your iPhone doesn't come with a charging brick in the box. Your iPhone doesn't come with a 120Hz display. Your iPhone doesn't come with 45 watts wired charging. So again, if I were to compare this device, which I'm not doing, to the iPhone 16e, I'd be looking for a hell of a lot more for my money if I purchased a £600 smartphone. Now, drawbacks of this phone regarding battery is no wireless charging, no super fast charging. While 45 watts compared to your Googles, Samsungs and Apples of the world is fast, this is a Xiaomi device, and some other Xiaomis go up to 200 watts fast charging. So yeah, a slight drawback compared to the rest, but again, at the price point, what are we expecting here? And now the section you've most likely been waiting for, it's the cameras. I say cameras, it's the camera on the rear and the camera on the front. There's no triple or quad setup here. There is a 50 megapixel main lens. Now that is a Sony IMX882. It does produce really, really nice photos at the 1x or 2x cropped in optical zoom range. Yes, because it's 50 megapixel, the 4-in-1 large sensor allows you to crop in to 2 times optical. But when you get past that, if you're looking for anything like 10x or above, this is not the phone for you. Here's some examples of photos I took while in Qatar and just from my office desk. The photos are more than acceptable from that main lens. Where the phone does fall down though is video recording. And I mentioned earlier, this is where the Dimensity chip kind of lets down. The Dimensity chip will not accommodate for 4K 120 frames per second or even 4K 60 frames per second. It will also not allow 8K. So this phone is actually tapped out at 1080p on the front and rear, and it's 30 frames per second. So if video is your main use case scenario for your smartphone, then just being honest, the Poco M7 Pro probably isn't the phone for you. While outputs are completely acceptable in 2025, 4K 60 frames per second on any smartphone seems to be the standard. Now, the 1080p front-facing camera isn't brilliant, but it does what I would need an iPhone to do, especially at the £200 price point. So yeah, I can handle a 1080p 30 frames per second front-facing camera. Now, in terms of connectivity, this phone has Wi-Fi 5 on board. A couple of years older, we're now on Wi-Fi 7, but it'll connect to all your Wi-Fi routers fine. It does have Bluetooth 5.3, which is fairly new, and it supports all major 5G and 4G bands because yes, this is a 5G device and yes, it is global. A full global ROM in here, so your Google Play Store, your Google Pay, your Android Auto, everything works perfectly on this device. The one thing it doesn't have that other mid-range to flagship phones has is eSIM support. That seems to be lacking on here. Poco can let me know if I'm wrong, but it's not in any of the media bump and it's certainly not in the settings. So no eSIM support on this device. This phone is for somebody's first phone. Maybe you're a parent and you want your child, your 11, 12, 13-year-old child to have a phone that you can use Find My Device on through Google, which you can. You can track them if you're that way inclined, and you can get in contact with them. And if they happen to break the phone at less than £200, it ain't the end of the world. Or maybe this phone is for someone that doesn't care about flagship cameras or the fastest charging or the best video recording. Maybe they just want a phone that makes and receives calls and sends text messages. Well, the M7 Pro is a pretty good option for that too. Or a second burner phone if you're that way inclined. So that's been my review of the Poco M7 Pro 5G. I will leave links to the product down below in the description. As mentioned, on the Poco/Xiaomi website, you can pick up the 12 gigabytes of RAM with 256 gigabytes of storage for £199. However, there is an 8 gigabyte of RAM version with 256 storage for even cheaper than that. Link in description. I'll be back soon with more content on flagship devices. Next up, the Oppo Find X8 Ultra. Until then,